The United Kingdom left the European Union on February 1st. The exit will be followed by a transition phase until the end of 2020, during which EU law will generally continue to apply. But what are the consequences? The German federal government has created an overview with questions and answers, especially on students, universities and science. And today I'll introduce you to them. What does the transition phase mean and how long does it last? A transition phase is anchored in the exit agreement until December 31st, during which EU law continues to apply to the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom remains part of the EU internal market and the EU customs union. The EU free movement, that means the right to live, work, study or have social security in the EU and the UK, will continue to apply in full during this period. Can I continue my studies in the UK? Those who are already studying in the UK should continue to do so. The residency status should not change as a result of Brexit. However, you must apply for settled status by June 30th, 2021, and no serious crimes may have been committed. I hope so for all German inhabitants, but you never know. The British government announced this in its statement of intent on the EU settlement scheme. Will my academic achievements continue to be recognized? Yes, the UK will remain part of the European higher education area, even in the event of a Brexit. Do I have to pay tuition fees in the UK if I want to continue studying there? The British government has promised that European bachelor level students starting their studies at English universities in autumn 2019 will continue to incur fees in the amount that British first year students will pay. That's a max of £9,250 a year. Scotland has already promised the same. EU students will continue to be treated like Scottish children, and that's already since 2019. You therefore do not pay any fees. The same regulations also applies to EU students at master's level who start their studies in autumn 19. The British government has meanwhile announced that the so-called home fee status with a capped tuition fee for EU students will also apply to the 2020-21 academic year. The British government has announced that from the academic year 21-22, EU students will no longer be entitled to home fee status. In addition to England, this also applies to Scotland and Wales. This means that the same fees then apply to EU students as to other international students. In Northern Ireland, the decision to continue home fee status is still pending. As a British student, do I have to pay tuition fees in Germany? UK students may experience tuition fees for international students from non-EU countries after exiting. This decision is made by the federal states in accordance with the respective university law. Only in Baden-Württemberg have such fees been changed and charged since 2017-2018 winter semester. Education is a state competence in Germany, and the federal government doesn't have a say in it. Only the states, the 16 single states, have a say in education. The following exception applies there. If a state leaves the European Union or the European Economic Area and citizens of the state would be liable for fees as a result according to paragraph 3, then citizens of the state can, provided that they are in a course of study for at least 5 semesters at the time the exit takes effect. If you were enrolled at a university in Baden-Württemberg, you can continue your studies in this course free of charge. Will UK professional qualifications still be recognized? The recognition of British professional qualifications in Germany that took place before the exit remains valid. Will my UK professional qualifications still be recognized after January 31st? So, right now we are in that phase. Yes, even after the UK left the EU on January 31st, professional qualifications from the UK can be recognized in Germany. The relevant EU regulations on recognition continue to apply to the examination and decision of applications for recognition of professional qualifications submitted by EU citizens or British nationals before December 31st. As a German trainee, can I continue to receive BAFEK after the UK leaves? BAFEK is the German student loan, by the way. The Brexit transitional law provides for a transitional phase until December 31st, during which the United Kingdom is basically to be treated like a member state of the EU. For BAFEK, this means that there will be no changes until the end of 2020. After the end of the transition period, funding for a stay abroad in the UK is generally possible for a period of up to 1 year. In order to guarantee the protection of confidence to those affected and to avoid breaks in their educational biographies, it should be possible to continue to fund training phases that have already started in the UK on a transitional basis. The federal government therefore passed a draft law on May 20th to change and also adopt by BAFEK with the transitional regulation with regard to Brexit. You see, it's not only EU legislation that has to deal with Brexit. There's a lot of legislation necessary in the member states to cope with that situation. And according to this, trainees who start or continue a phase of training at training facilities in the UK and that before the end of the transition period can continue to receive training support until the completion or discontinuation of this training phase at a training facility there, in accordance with the otherwise unchanged applicable provisions or other BAFEK funding requirements that are granted. The parliamentary legislature still has to decide on this draft on the federal government. If the proposed law successfully passes all instances of the legislative process, the law can be expected to be issued in late autumn of this year. As a UK apprentice, can I continue to receive BAFEK after the UK leaves? For British apprentices who are eligible for BAFEK, they will be treated like nationals of a member state of the EU until December 31st. Accordingly, up to this point in time, if the other requirements under BAFEK are met, you can be entitled to funding for your training. Beyond this point in time, British nationals will in future still be entitled to BAFEK funding directly from the exit agreement in accordance with the other unchanged funding requirements of BAFEK, if they have acquired a permanent right of residence or if they are employees, self-employed, or whose family members belong to all the situations that are part of the withdrawal agreement. So that is one example where you see what effect it would have if the British government would go and quit the withdrawal agreement, and they're trying to change it, which is not possible unilaterally. The other chance they have is to just quit that thing, although the withdrawal agreement itself says it only can be quit after 4 years, and that would be another legal discussions. But this would have so much effect on people living abroad, and this is just a single example for that. And if you do not fall under the group of people I mentioned before, you will lose any entitlement to BAFEK at the end of the transition period if you do not meet the special requirements of the BAFEK law, under which nationals of non-EU countries are also supported. Can I continue to receive scholarship from a UK gifted school? The possibility of funding for stays abroad in the UK is not tied to the requirements of EU membership and remains unaffected by a Brexit. The situation is different for funding for studies carried out entirely in the UK. Here too, the possibility of funding remains until the end of 2020. Because the Brexit transitional law provides for a transitional phase until December 31st, during which the UK is basically to be treated like a member state of the EU. It is planned to apply the regulations to be created for those eligible for BAFEK to the scholarship holders of the gifted support organizations who are studying. How will the promotions of British citizens in Germany will be affected by that? Well, all this also applies to the funding opportunities for British citizens that will be treated like citizens of a member state until December 31st, and that there will be no change in the funding options of the gifted funding agencies until then. For British nationals too, a separate decision will have to be made in due course on the question of a transitional provision for further funding after the end of the transition phase until the completion of the previously started training phase. Will the UK continue to participate in the Erasmus Plus program after leaving the EU? The UK will participate in the EU programs including Erasmus Plus until the end of the current programming period, and that's 2020. Statements about the status of the United Kingdom in the Erasmus Plus program after the end of the current program period cannot yet be made. This depends on the provisions on the association of third countries in the EU spending programs for the program generation, that's 2021 to 2027, as well as the negotiations with the UK on the future relationship. Who can affected educational institutions contact? Educational institutions planning projects with partners in the UK can contact the relevant national agencies for Erasmus Plus for further advice. Information on Brexit can be found on the website of the national agencies. What effect will Brexit have on the current research framework program Horizon 2020? There are currently around 6,000 ongoing projects with British participation under Horizon 2020. German institutions are also involved in a good 2,700 of these projects. Upon ratification, a transition period will come into force for Horizon 2020. UK institutions will remain eligible until the end of Horizon 2020 and the end of the duration of the individual projects. This applies to both the network and the individual funding measures. What effects will Brexit have on the Horizon Europe follow-up program? The effects of Brexit on the follow-up program Horizon Europe are still open. This depends on the provisions on the association of third countries in the framework program, as well as the negotiations with the UK on the future relationship. In the event that no association agreement with Horizon Europe is concluded, the British government has committed to providing financial support to partners from the United Kingdom in a political declaration of intent as part of its research and development roadmap. And if you now want to know more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to the button to subscribe to my channel, which I really appreciate if you did. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!